What is going on, everyone? It's the Reformation Keegan, and I'm here with something a bit new today. What we're doing is looking at a video instead of a book, and in particular, we're looking at SpongeBob. So I know what you're probably thinking. SpongeBob's just a kids show, right? SpongeBob's just a show for, a demographic that doesn't really fully comprehend what they're always watching. And a part of that is true because SpongeBob is designed on the surface to be a kids show. However, there are a lot of constituents that also argue against that. So SpongeBob has a lot of dark humor that is truthfully very accurate and describes individuals in their day-to-day life. You have the SpongeBob Seven Deadly Sins theory, which I actually think has some validity to it. You have other various theories as well that I think are pretty viable. But one episode I'm looking at is Squidville. So this was earlier on in SpongeBob, and to me, the first three seasons are absolute all timers. Three of the best seasons ever in any television show, regardless of if it's a sitcom, a kids cartoon, anything like that. I think that SpongeBob tells really good stories in different ways. So they use a multimodal process to basically send the message that they want to send with the characters. So like Mr. Krabs is, representing greed, and then Squidward maybe depression and wrath. SpongeBob could be pride, Patrick could be sloth. So like there's a lot of different elements at play. And Squidville, I think, encapsulates this a lot. And if this video ends up taking off and doing really well, I think I will probably continue it and maybe just start from season one. At least do from seasons 1 to 3, all in order, in every episode, and describe it really from an English major's point of view, and really just even from a practical day to day point of view as well. So I'm going to get started and talk about this episode. So Squidville, like I said, it's earlier on in the SpongeBob canon, and by this point, Squidward is already established as somebody who is not really tolerant of stupidity or tolerant of people that are obnoxious. So SpongeBob and Patrick, unfortunately, are the two most obnoxious people in all of Bikini Bottom, and Squidward lives in the middle of both of them. So that placement right there of Squidward's house living in his house in the middle of both of them, is just, to me, genius writing, and it's symbolic writing. So that's where in English we would call that a deep form of symbolism, because Squidward is living in the proverbial and literal middle of his two biggest problems. But also, Squidward is his own biggest problem and his own worst enemy, as you can see in this episode. So the episode starts innocently with SpongeBob and Patrick playing with reef blowers, which is also a wordplay for leaf blower because they're obviously in the water. So this show uses a lot of wordplay, and I think it's really, really clever and super well done. So SpongeBob and Patrick, they're playing with their reef blowers, like two 5-year-olds. And what happens is they get careless and they act like proverbial children, and they end up destroying Squidward's house, and Squidward is not happy about this, obviously. First, he gives them a bit of a warning, trying to tell them, hey, watch what you're doing, things like that, and just really, stick his head out of the window and trying to, get them to stop. But eventually, they just completely blow up his house, and this is where, in English, you would use hyperbole for an exaggerated effect. So all of Squidward's parts of his house, like the nose of the door and the window, they all hit the main foundation, and it explodes, and it's just a big calamity, a big mess, and that's pretty hyperbolic. But in a cartoon like this, it makes sense to do. And then Squidward immediately after says, "This is the final straw." So right there, Squidward reminds the man on TV, when the TV, because somehow out of this whole calamity, the TV falls and the TV's perfectly fine, but pretty much all the other stuff in the house is destroyed. And he says the nearest three-way, and then Squidward says four-way, right? Like with so much emphasis. So Squidward has memorized this shtick to a T, and it's almost like he was playing an internal monologue in his own head. and speaking to himself, memorizing all of these lines where, this TV personality says, is this the final straw? Nearest three-way, four-way, and then four-way again. And I think that that's also pretty symbolic because in English, sometimes like if you're reading Shakespeare or something, you'll try to memorize a monologue, like for example like Hamlet's to be or not to be, and you try to remember it word for word. And Squidward does this not because he's reciting a play in his mind, but he's doing this because of the melancholic place he's in. Squidward lives with a lot of melancholy, and he's always in a melancholic state of mind. Even if he's happy temporarily, his proverbial melancholy always comes back to haunt him. And we can see this throughout this episode. So Squidward planned to move for a while, and him saying this is the final straw showed that he just needed one more reason to do so. And then when he goes immediately to Tentacle Acres, he says, "I'm here about the happiness." Like it's like this place of destiny, the happiness, like it's an entity. And he says, "I'll be moving in now." So this almost seems like a fight or flight response to get away from his issues in day-to-day life. And that's what depression does. So depression can lead you to a fight or flight response where you see something that's not paradise, but you think it's paradise. So you want to move there to get away from what you're going through on a daily basis in the real world. So the other thing that was kind of revealing about this particular scene is when he's speaking to the guards, the guard says, "Are you now or have you ever been a sponge?" And then Squidward stops and he says no. And then the guard says, "What about it?" And he just says, "I'm not a starfish." So there's a lot of different things at play here. And I was wondering, is hatred for sponges common for cephalopods in this canon? I don't know. I've watched SpongeBob a lot, but it's something I wonder, because is there a form of discrimination in Bikini Bottom or just in the canon in general for sponges? Are all sponges always annoying? Because if we look at SpongeBob's ancestors, like there's SpongeBuck and like there's the one uncle, I can't, his name's escaping me right now, but they're all very obnoxious and very annoying. But I just wonder if octopi, because they call him Squidward, but he's really an octopus, if octopi and sponges have always been at odds with each other. I don't know. So I think that'd be a fun question to maybe theorize going forward. And like, does the sea have divisions like humans? So is there a hierarchical division? Are crabs always the richest? Are cephalopods always the most miserable? Are starfish the most stupid? Are sponges the most annoying? Are fish just the everyday Joes that kind of seem unhappy with their lives? I don't know. But that's kind of the way that I see it. So I feel like cephalopods almost have a genetic form of depression, because if you look at the cephalopods that live in Tentacle Acres, they all seem like they're doing what they want to do, but they're not happy with it. They all seem like they're just going through their day very systematically. And Squidward can't go through these days systematically. And sometimes with depression, you can do things systematically to keep yourself going, but then there's other times where you're just so despondent and you take yourself out of everyday activities because you don't have the fortitude and the motivation to continue to do what you do daily. So Tentacle Acres really shows the heaven versus reality complex here, where it almost seems like a paradise to someone who's depressed, but then the reality hits them almost immediately with being there. So in his first interaction, Squidward sees another cephalopod, and the cephalopod says, "I've heard better comebacks from a turkey sandwich. Get a life." And then Squidward immediately says, "This place is better than I expected." That's a really depressing response when you just basically got roasted. So it makes me wonder, is Tentacle Acres a place of delusion too? Is it just a place where depressed people or depressed cephalopods go to try and get away from everybody else? Because it really seems like that, because my next point is there seems to be like an element, I don't want to say an element of race, but something similar, like an element of discrimination, because like he doesn't want to be anywhere near SpongeBob or Patrick. And then that scene where, "Have you ever been a sponge?" that's very revealing, because then when SpongeBob and Patrick make their way to Tentacle Acres to go apologize to Squidward, um, the one guard says, I'm sorry, but your kind is not allowed here. So that's almost an element of race, in a lot of ways. So I wonder again what the underlying themes are, because this is a kids show and you're dealing with very adult things like depression, like hierarchy. So like discrimination, even delusion. So I wonder what the intent was behind this episode. Like, I know what the intent was, but I wonder at the time what the intent was. Is it the intent that I'm discussing? I don't know. But I think it raises a lot of questions, because even with Squidward, like he goes into the one shop and he goes, well, I can't believe they have it, canned bread. And like, freaking canned bread, it's bread, who cares, right? But for Squidward, seeing that canned bread put a smile on his face. But then immediately after something becomes new and you repeatedly do it, it becomes normalized. So like when he goes to a dance academy and then he ends up playing in a clarinet trio, after a few days he starts to get tired of it, because when you're depressed, stuff on a vacation seems good temporarily, but then there's a hangover and then you start getting bored with what you're doing, and your mind needs to be stimulated, and his mind was not stimulated anymore. So that's where I left off with that. And then when he's playing with the reef blower, which he roasted SpongeBob for doing at the start of the episode, he's acting all immature and he's like, blowing his nose up and like all that stuff. And one girl gives him a dirty look and he says, "I'm just getting the leaves," but it's a reef blower, but you just said you're getting the leaves. And I know it's a wordplay for leaf blower, reef blower, but I wonder if that was done intentionally, because I think that's a really clever wordplay if that was the case, because I know in other episodes it's always called a reef blower, but I wonder if they added the leaves in there just to see if somebody would catch it. I don't know. But depression ultimately leads to impulsivity. So Squidward, even though he thought about moving, he finally acted after that one big tragedy happened where his house blew up, and he didn't really repair his house or anything like that. He just decided to just leave right there. And depression also leads to boredom, because like I said, he got bored living in this place, Tentacle Acres. So that's where I'm going to leave it at, because I think there's a huge aspect of depression in this episode, and I think that it was really fun to explore. I want to explore future episodes. Let me know what you think, because if this takes off, I will do all episodes from seasons 1 to 3 in order. So let me know what you think, because there's a lot of great episodes like Rock Bottom and Band Geeks, The Secret Box, a lot of stuff like that. Chocolate with Nuts. There's a lot of really good episodes that I think we can dig into. So let me know if that's of interest, because I'm also doing my comic analyses, and I'm also posting my stuff for professional wrestling too. So let's make this channel one big conglomerate, and we'll go from there. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. We are on the road to 500 subscribers, and I'm trying to get to 3,000 watch hours so I can put out more and better content for you. And I'll see you soon. And don't forget to watch my shorts, because those are posted almost every day, at least every couple. So stay tuned for those as well.